Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I'm going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e and we're talking about monster tactics for the giant frog. Yes, the giant frog. Now the giant frog is actually a hit and run creature. It's not the sort of creature that just fights once you get in combat with it. It doesn't really work that way. What it does is it just waits and then attacks and then leaves, usually with its meal. Now if you want information on the giant frog, you just need to turn to page 325 of the monster manual. Now, giant frogs don't sound horribly exciting, but I've had some of the more devastating things happen at my table occur with a giant toad, which is essentially a giant frog. But a giant frog is a hunter and a gatherer, and it's an aquatic hunter and gatherer. So giant frogs are actually carnivorous, which is why they tend to eat dragonflies and flies, the smaller versions that is. But they'll also eat vegetables and other matter depending on what's sort of available in their environment. So usually carnivorous, but will eat some plant matter if they have to. They'll use stealth and camouflage to hunt. So with a stealth modifier of only +3, which doesn't sound very high, you wouldn't think they were a stealthy creature, but they do have to be quite stealthy. And the reason being is there are lots of predators that would be interested in eating them. Now a giant frog has less predators to deal with, but they still have some predators that would be interested in eating them as well. So that's why they are a hit and run. They wait, they capture their food. Once they've captured their food, they then have to get back into hiding before something else can find them. The giant frog blends in with flora and does that pretty much perfectly. What it does is it sits completely still in an environment that it is very, very similar in colour to until a meal passes by. Now, we will know this in terms of flies, dragonflies, other insects and so forth. But it doesn't have to be restricted to that because now we're dealing with a giant frog, which is a very, very different thing to the standard little frog we find in the river and streams. So what tends to happen is a giant frog, or frogs in general, they hide below the surface of the water, or they'll hide underneath a lily pad or under the leaves that have settled on the water's surface. That makes them really hard to notice. And even if it's a frog that doesn't have the ability to camouflage itself or change its colour to match its environment, this is a strategy that all frogs will use. The giant frog will try to attack and eat smaller creatures. So when you have it do anything, when it's feeding, try not to have it attack something that's the same size as the giant frog, because that's very unlikely. What the frog is trying to do is latch its tongue on, pull it in and swallow the thing. So if it's too large, it's not going to be interested. But if it's a small size creature or smaller, then absolutely it would be interested. So that means that when it comes to an adventuring party who's exploring, say, a swamp or a watery area, something that the frog would live in, it's probably only going after the small size party members. Sorry, gnome. Anything that is small size is probably going to be a target. Halflings, small size. Gnomes in particular, because they're just perfect snack size, really. The thing about the giant frog also, it has a standing leap. So it doesn't have to make a run up. It's just a standing leap, and that's 20 feet long and 10 feet high, so it can leap over the top of a barrier or cover to get to its prey if it needs to. It can also leap out of things, which I will explain more as we go. So giant frogs, like all frogs, use their tongue. It lashes out, it curls around the target, and it's not so much the bite that is the issue, it's the tongue grappling onto your target, which is why when you make a bite attack with a giant frog, it's grappled automatically. As long as you hit the target with the bite, it's grappled automatically, which makes life very, very difficult. This means you can now drag or pull the creature that you've grappled with the tongue of the giant frog anywhere you like, and that's what I would suggest you do. So once you've got the grapple on your target, drag or hop towards water. Remember, frogs live in water, that this is where they would go to avoid their predators. So drag your victim towards water. Now, should the grapple be effective on a small or smaller creature, then follow up next round with another bite to try and swallow the creature. So the first one is just to grapple it with the tongue. You then have to follow up again the following round to get the swallow, and then hopefully draw it down into the stomach. And make sure, as I said, that it's trying to hop away or at least swim away with its food. It doesn't have to wait. Just because it's got the creature grappled but not swallowed doesn't mean it can't start drawing that creature towards a water source. So a common strategy used by frogs, and I was watching this on YouTube and a variety of videos and just reading about it, and it's quite interesting. The common strategy is to sit below the surface of the water, as I said, and this can be below a lily pad or leaves or something like that, but mostly it's just water because it can't be seen easily. And then whenever its prey flies by, say a fly or a dragonfly or anything else that's the right size, it leaps out of the water. That standing leap is why it's so useful. So you can have it leap out 10 feet and it can do 20 feet long. So that means you can now leap out of the water, stick out your tongue, grapple onto your small or smaller size creature, and drag that thing back down under the water. It splashes down into the water, and while it's swimming away, it's given enough time, hopefully, to follow up later on to swallow the creature so it can eat it. Giant frogs don't fight to the death. Hit and run creature, and they don't stick around long. So this is one of the biggest problems for a party. If one of their smaller members gets the bite on them and grappled and then dragged down into the water, and it's hopping off, which it can do, but more likely going into water, and it follows up with the swallow, there isn't an awful lot of time to follow up and rescue them, because the frog, once it's got its meal, it doesn't need to do anything else. It's not going to sit there and try to attack every single party member that there is. So don't even bother doing that. So I'm going to pull up a scene just very quickly, just because I like using miniatures, and just give you a quick demonstration. So here is a small environment. It's a swamp, and I've got myself a giant frog. Now this giant frog would be below the surface or hiding in, say, some trees or brush or something that would sort of help camouflage it. And as soon as something came close enough, it would then jump out of the water. Now the bite has only got 5 feet, so its tongue doesn't extend that far. So you would jump out of the water, hoppity hop hop, that's only 5 feet, use your tongue, and then you can then either jump onto land, or you can have it swim along, leap out, and as it's leaping across the boat, okay, because it can do a long jump, remember 20 feet, 5, 10, 15, 20, it can land over here. You can literally hop out of the water, latch onto your target, which is the small creature, it's a gnome, I believe, and then leap back into the water and swim off. And that's what I would suggest you do. I know it sounds horrible. It sounds like, okay, well, you've just eliminated one member of the party, and they're the small member as it is. But that's one of the most sensible ways of dealing with the giant frog, in my opinion. Or, like I said, you can do it from a hiding place. So that is my advice for the giant frog. Now, this is not the definitive way to run a giant frog. This is just the way I would do it, and hopefully you will find it useful. So if you did find it useful, please share and like the video. Give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, then tell me why down in the comment section. If you're not already subscribed, then maybe this is the time to hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to my channel so you can see more of this sort of content, because I do more of this sort of thing. Not just for Dungeon Masters, I do have players content I don't do Patreon, but if you want to support my channel, watching more of my videos, I've got I do one every single day, and there's almost 500 of them now, so there's plenty of stuff for you to watch. Also too, down in the description you should find affiliate links where you can buy stuff online. You know the deal. I get a small commission, you pay exactly the same price provided you buy stuff online, that is, and you don't even have to buy the thing linked to. If you have any feedback, in the chat box is the time to do it. Start typing in your things, any feedback, any questions. And I will answer questions unrelated to the giant frog. For those of you who are wondering, is the only thing I'm going to talk about giant frogs? Well, no, it's not. I will talk about other topics, whether it's for the player or the dungeon master. Otherwise, if you're not part of the live stream, you weren't able to make it for the live stream, you can put your questions, your feedback, and down in the comments section like we normally do. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.